Star Trek's classic 1960s Tribbles episode was made possible by a Star Trek discovery story. In the grand, time-twisting tradition of Star Trek, sometimes the future is responsible for the past. That's exactly what happened when Star Trek Discovery added a surprising layer of retroactive meaning to one of the most beloved and quirky episodes in the original series, The Trouble with Tribbles. The fluffy, purring creatures that first made Captain Kirk groan in 1967 became an iconic piece of Trek history. But thanks to Discovery, we now know their story began far earlier and far more dangerously than anyone could have imagined. The Tribbles of 1967, harmless nuisance or fuzzy threat. When The Trouble with Tribbles aired during Star Trek, the original series season 2, it was a lighter episode that leaned heavily into humor. The USS Enterprise is dispatched to Deep Space Station K7 to safeguard a shipment of quadrotriticale, a grain critical to Federation development in disputed Klingon space. But a simple mission takes a hilariously fuzzy turn when Lieutenant Uhura brings a Tribble aboard. The small, soft, purring creatures seem innocent at first, until they begin reproducing at an alarming rate. Before long, the ship is overrun. The real kicker? Tribbles hate Klingons, which leads to some unintended diplomatic tension. In the context of the 1960s, this episode was seen as a satirical take on bureaucracy, overpopulation, and Cold War politics. It was never intended to set up a long, serialized narrative. But Discovery, ever eager to rewrite history with nuance and ambition, reached back and reframed the Tribbles not as an accidental infestation, but as a warning. Discovery's retroactive worldbuilding. The Tribble turn. Enter Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 6, The Sound of Thunder. While the episode doesn't focus on Tribbles directly, Discovery's second season introduced something crucial. Section 31. The shady, off-the-books intelligence agency of the Federation began to take center stage, revealing how far Starfleet was willing to go in the name of security and survival. Then came Short Treks, the brilliant mini-episode anthology series that expanded the Star Trek mythos in short, concentrated bursts. In the episode, The Trouble with Edward, a prequel of sorts to the classic Tribble tale, we meet Edward Larkin, a Starfleet science officer who believes he's discovered the answer to food scarcity: genetically modified Tribbles. Larkin tampers with the creature's DNA to increase their reproductive rate, believing they could provide a sustainable protein source. The result? Chaos. The genetically altered Tribbles reproduce far faster than anyone anticipated, spreading uncontrollably through a science vessel. Edward's experiment goes awry in spectacular fashion, and his hubris gives birth to the Tribble plague. This revelation means the events of the classic 1960s episode were never just random. They were the fallout from a secret scientific disaster orchestrated by an overeager, under-supervised Starfleet officer. Redefining a classic. How Discovery made Tribbles terrifying. Discovery and Short Treks did something clever. They took a fan-favorite comic relief episode and turned it into the aftermath of a science-gone-wrong cautionary tale. By establishing that Tribbles were genetically modified by humans, not naturally occurring menaces, Discovery redefined the creatures as an unintended consequence of Federation ambition. This not only deepens the story of The Trouble with Tribbles, but it also heightens the stakes. Instead of being a quirky side plot, Tribbles now represent a dark corner of Starfleet history, a perfect example of why unchecked experimentation and covert operations have long-lasting consequences. Edward Larkin's meddling gave rise to a near-biblical level of infestation, all in the name of solving hunger. And perhaps most importantly, this revelation honors the original episode's themes. Where The Trouble with Tribbles used satire to comment on bureaucracy and overpopulation, The Trouble with Edward adds a modern warning about the ethics of genetic engineering and the risks of playing God. Star Trek's timeless interconnectivity. This retroactive continuity, or retcon, is part of what makes Star Trek such a rich, evolving tapestry. Rather than rewriting history in a way that contradicts the original, Discovery and Short Treks enhance it. They expand on a beloved concept while adding complexity and modern relevance. In this way, Discovery did more than just build on Trek lore, it made it deeper. Suddenly, Kirk's exasperated expressions and